What happens when two well-loved television personalities sit down for what should have been a light and cheerful chat, but instead find themselves pulled into a rising tension that slowly spirals completely out of control? What begins as warm small talk quickly shifts into something neither of them expected, and by the end of it, one of them is actually walking off the set. This is the story of Valerie Bertinelli's explosive visit to the Drew Barrymore show. And believe me, you're going to want to hear every single moment of what happened. But before we get into it, make sure you tap that subscribe button and leave a comment below telling me whose side you're on after hearing this whole thing, because this is one of those situations where everyone is going to have very strong opinions. The Drew Barrymore show set was buzzing with its usual positive energy that morning. The crowd was settled in, the cameras were already rolling, and Drew had just wrapped up her opening segment with that bright enthusiasm she's known for. She turned to the audience with a glowing smile and said, "Okay everyone, I am so thrilled for our next guest. She's someone I have admired for so many years, an amazing actress, a wonderful cook, and just a beautiful human being. Please welcome Valerie Bertinelli." The audience burst into cheers as Valerie walked onto the stage, waving warmly. She looked graceful in a navy blazer and fitted jeans, her hair perfectly styled. Drew practically jumped up from her seat to greet her, wrapping her in one of those long, affectionate hugs she often gives. They sat across from each other, both smiling, both looking ready for an easy and fun conversation. "Valerie, it is so good to see you," Drew said happily. "I've wanted to have you on the show for such a long time." "Well, I'm happy to finally be here," Valerie replied with a gentle smile. "Thank you for inviting me." Drew leaned forward, elbows resting on her knees the way she often does, keeping things casual. "So, I want to get right into it because so many people really relate to your journey. You've been very open about your personal life, about the tough times and the good ones. I admire that honesty." "Thank you," Valerie said with a nod. "I think being honest matters. We all go through things, and pretending we don't helps no one." "Exactly," Drew said brightly. "And speaking of being open, I want to talk about your new cookbook and how you've been managing everything in your personal life while also building this amazing career comeback. You're really thriving, and I love seeing it." Valerie smiled, but there was something slightly guarded about it now. "Well, I don't know if I'd say thriving," she said. "I'm doing my best, taking things one day at a time." Drew waved her hand playfully. "Oh come on. You're being humble. You look wonderful, your work is wonderful. And after everything you went through with your divorce, it's inspiring to see how you threw yourself into your projects and found yourself again." Valerie's smile tightened just a bit. "I appreciate that, Drew. But it's a little more complicated than just throwing myself into work. It's been a long process." "Of course," Drew said quickly. "But you have to admit there's something freeing about it, right? Like when I went through my divorce, once I got past the heartbreak, I felt this sense of freedom." "Did you feel that at all?" Valerie shifted slightly, showing the first sign of discomfort. "I think everyone's experience is different. For me, it wasn't about feeling free. I was trying to figure out who I was again after spending so much of my life in that marriage." "Right, totally," Drew nodded. "But she didn't stop. But now that you're on the other side of it, don't you look back and kinda laugh at some of it?" "I know I did. Humor helps." "I wouldn't say I'm laughing about it," Valerie replied, her tone cooler now. "It was deeply painful, and I don't think it'll ever be something I find funny." Drew seemed to notice the shift, but she kept trying. "No, not laughing at the pain. Just at how absurd life can be sometimes. You know, like thinking, wow, I actually tolerated that." Valerie's jaw tightened. "I'm not sure I understand what you're trying to say." The audience, sensing the shift, grew quiet. Drew, maybe not fully aware of the tension, pressed on. "I just mean that sometimes we women lose ourselves in relationships, and when they end, it gives us a chance to rediscover who we are. And you've done that so beautifully." "I know you're trying to be kind," Valerie said politely but firmly, "but I'm not comfortable with the idea that my divorce was some kind of gift or opportunity. It was a huge loss, and while I've worked hard to move forward, I don't think it's fair to frame it as something positive. Drew's smile faltered. Oh, I didn't mean it like that. I just wanted to highlight your strength. But that's part of the issue, Valerie said, leaning in slightly. You keep talking like I had to go through something awful to become a better version of myself. I was already whole. The marriage ended, and now I'm in a new chapter, but I wasn't broken before. The tension was unmistakable now. Drew clasped her hands, trying to shift the mood. You're right, and I'm sorry if it came across that way. Maybe I was projecting my own experience. I appreciate the apology, Valerie said, but her posture stayed stiff. Trying to lighten the energy, Drew took a breath and smiled again. Okay, let's talk cooking. Your new cookbook is amazing. I made one of the recipes last week. So good. Thank you, Valerie said, softening slightly. Cooking has always been a passion, so making the cookbook was special. And you've been doing a lot of cooking videos online, right? Drew asked. They're so comforting to watch. I'm glad people like them, Valerie replied. It's a nice way to connect. Drew nodded enthusiastically. It's fascinating because you really lean into comfort food, and I wonder if that's tied to everything you've been through emotionally. Like, are you feeding yourself in ways you weren't being fed before? Valerie's eyes narrowed. I'm sorry, a broken bar. What? I just mean, Drew said, still not noticing the warning signs. Sometimes we use food to nurture ourselves when we're missing that elsewhere. Drew, Valerie said slowly, I cook because I love cooking. I always have. It's not about filling some emotional hole. No, I know that, Drew said quickly. I'm just exploring deeper meaning. Valerie sat back, arms crossed. So you think my cooking is a coping mechanism? I think our passions shift with our lives, Drew said, almost sounding like a therapist. My passion for cooking is simply my passion, Valerie replied flatly. There's no hidden trauma I'm trying to heal in the kitchen, Drew. The audience was now totally silent. Drew's smile had turned a bit stiff. I wasn't implying trauma, I just you were psychoanalyzing me on national television, Valerie interrupted. And I don't appreciate it. Drew raised her hands calmly. I'm so sorry. That wasn't my intention. Maybe not, Valerie said curtly. An awkward pause filled the room. Drew glanced at her notes, trying to salvage things. Okay, new topic. Your garden. It looks amazing. Valerie's shoulders lowered a bit. Thank you. I've gotten more into gardening lately. It's beautiful, Drew said. And I have to ask, a broken bar, is there a special someone helping you with all that planting? Because I feel like I saw hints. Valerie's face instantly hardened. Drew, I don't want to talk about my personal relationships. I'm not prying, Drew said nervously. The audience loves knowing if you're happy or dating. Do they? Valerie asked sharply. Because it feels like you've spent this entire interview digging into my divorce, my emotions, and now my dating life. This is not what I was told we'd talk about. I thought we were just having a conversation, Drew said. I share everything about my life. That's your choice, Valerie said. That doesn't mean I have to. And it feels invasive that you keep pushing. I'm not pushing, Drew insisted. I'm just asking questions. There's asking questions, Valerie said, and there's ignoring someone's boundaries. I've redirected you several times, and you keep circling back. The audience shifted uncomfortably. Drew looked confused. I'm not trying to make you uncomfortable. Maybe there was a misunderstanding about what kind of interview this would be. Maybe so, Valerie said tightly, because I was told this would be light and fun. Instead, it feels like a therapy session I didn't agree to. That's not fair, Drew said, sounding hurt. This show is about going deeper. Going deeper requires consent, Valerie replied. You don't get to dig into someone's pain just because you think it makes good TV. I wasn't doing that, Drew said defensively. I ask normal talk show questions. Normal questions don't feel like interrogation, Valerie said. This feels like my vulnerability is being used as entertainment. I wasn't trying to exploit you, Drew said, her voice shaking. Never. Maybe not on purpose, Valerie said softly. But intention isn't everything. I feel disrespected and pushed. I think maybe you're being overly defensive, Drew said before she could stop herself. The audience gasped loudly. Valerie's eyes widened in disbelief. "I'm sorry, what did you just say?" "I just mean that maybe you need to ask yourself why you feel so guarded," Drew said, even as her producer frantically signaled her to stop talking. Valerie stood slowly and removed her microphone. "I'm done." "Wait, what are you doing?" Drew asked, getting up too. "I'm leaving," Valerie said calmly. "I'm not going to stay here and be told that my boundaries mean I'm defensive all the time. The issue because I won't perform emotional vulnerability for your show." "Valerie, please sit," Drew begged. "We can fix this." "No," Valerie said firmly, placing the mic on her chair. "I gave you many chances. And you told me even after all of these that maybe I should examine why I'm defensive. Do you know how insulting that is?" Drew reached forward as if to touch her arm, but Valerie stepped back. "Don't." "I came here in good faith," Valerie continued, "to talk about my work, to share joy. Instead, I've been poked and picked apart, and when I spoke up, you told me I was the problem." "That's not what I meant," Drew said, on the verge of tears. "It's exactly what you meant," Valerie said. "And now I'm leaving." She turned and calmly walked off the set as the stunned audience sat frozen in silence, unsure what they had just witnessed, while Drew stood there with tears running down her face, whispering, "I never wanted this.